Have you ever looked at pictures of galaxies and wondered how they can all belong to the same universe? One looks like a giant spinning pinwheel, another looks like a glowing football. Some resemble cosmic storms, others are nothing more than faint smudges of light, and one of them looks almost exactly like a perfect ring floating in space. At first glance, they seem completely unrelated, but they're not. Every galaxy astronomers have ever discovered belongs to a surprisingly small number of families. And once you understand those families, you stop seeing random shapes. You start reading the history of the universe itself, because every galaxy is a snapshot of a different stage of life. Some are still growing, some have already died, some survived unimaginable collisions, and others break almost every rule we thought galaxies were supposed to follow. By the end of this video, you'll never look at another galaxy the same way again, because the first galaxy we'll explore is the one you're standing inside right now. Imagine flying millions of light years away from Earth, far enough that our entire solar system disappears, far enough that the Milky Way finally comes into view. You wouldn't see a collection of individual stars. You'd see a gigantic whirlpool of light. This is a spiral galaxy, the most iconic galaxy in the universe, a bright central bulge surrounded by enormous glowing arms that wrap around it like a cosmic hurricane. It almost looks too perfectly designed to be natural. But here's something surprising. Those spiral arms aren't permanent structures. They're more like traffic jams. Imagine thousands of cars driving around a circular highway. The cars keep moving, yet certain sections always stay crowded. The traffic jam survives. Even though the individual cars constantly change, spiral arms behave almost the same way. Stars are always moving through them, but the arms themselves remain. And that's exactly what makes them so important, because inside those crowded regions, massive clouds of gas crash into each other. Gravity squeezes them tighter and tighter. Therefore, new stars are born, millions of them. That's why the arms glow with brilliant blue light. Blue stars are incredibly young. They're the newborns of the galaxy. The center tells a completely different story. Instead of young blue stars, it's filled with ancient red and yellow ones that have been shining for billions of years. It's almost like walking through a city where the suburbs are full of young families, while downtown is occupied by the oldest buildings still standing. You're looking at one of these right now. Because our own Milky Way is a spiral galaxy, so is Andromeda, the giant galaxy that's currently falling toward us on a slow-motion collision course, billions of years in the making. In fact, spirals make up around 60% of every large galaxy in the universe, which sounds like astronomers have this one completely figured out. They don't. Most spiral galaxies have 2 elegant arms. Some have 4, and one recently discovered galaxy has 3 enormous spiral arms, each stretching so far that the entire galaxy is nearly 3 times wider than the Milky Way's visible disk. Even the universe doesn't always color inside the lines, but beautiful things rarely stay unchanged forever, because eventually gravity brings galaxies together, and when it does, the next family is born. If spiral galaxies are bustling cities, the next type feels more like ancient ruins. At first glance, elliptical galaxies almost seem disappointing. No graceful arms, no dramatic patterns, no swirling structure, just a giant glowing ball of stars, almost featureless. But that's exactly why they're fascinating. Elliptical galaxies are some of the oldest survivors in the universe. Most of the gas needed to create new stars is already gone. The brilliant blue stars have long since died. What's left are billions of older, redder stars quietly orbiting in every direction. They're no longer building the future. They're preserving the past. Astronomers believe many elliptical galaxies weren't born this way. They started as beautiful spirals. But over billions of years, 2 galaxies drifted too close together. Their gravity pulled and stretched everything. The elegant spiral pattern was ripped apart. Stars were thrown into completely random orbits. Therefore, the graceful pinwheel disappeared forever, leaving behind one enormous glowing sphere. It's one of the greatest transformations in the universe. Not because stars collide. In fact, they almost never do. Space is simply too empty. It's gravity alone, quietly reshuffling hundreds of billions of stars until the original galaxy becomes unrecognizable. Some of these giants are absolutely enormous. The largest elliptical galaxies stretch over 1 million light-years across, roughly 10 times larger than the Milky Way. Some even hide supermassive black holes powerful enough to launch jets extending thousands of light-years into space. So while spiral galaxies are busy creating new stars, elliptical galaxies are museums of ancient ones. But astronomers eventually found galaxies that didn't fit either family. They still had the flat disk of a spiral, but their beautiful arms were completely gone. It was almost as if someone had quietly erased them. Picture a galaxy that looks almost exactly like a spiral, except someone reached in and switched off the lights in every single arm. It still spins. It still has that bright central bulge. But the beautiful pattern that defines a spiral galaxy, gone. These are lenticular galaxies, and they're what happens when a galaxy runs out of fuel while it's still alive. Without fresh gas, new stars stop forming. Without young blue stars, the spiral arms slowly fade from view. All that's left is a smooth, lens-shaped galaxy, quietly drifting through space. Astronomers think many of these were once ordinary spirals. Then something stole their fuel. Maybe repeated encounters with neighboring galaxies. Maybe enormous clouds of superheated gas, stripping everything away. Not an explosion, not a collision, just billions of years of a galaxy slowly forgetting how to make stars, and nobody there to notice. You'd think every galaxy follows one of these neat evolutionary paths. But then astronomers found galaxies that seemed to have no plan at all. No symmetry, no elegant structure, no recognizable shape. Just beautiful, chaotic, cosmic messes. Some galaxies look like masterpieces. Others look like the universe simply stopped caring. No spiral, no smooth oval, no recognizable pattern. Just scattered stars, twisted clouds, and glowing patches of gas thrown across space almost at random. These are irregular galaxies, the outlaws of the cosmos. At first glance, they look unfinished, broken, like someone interrupted their creation halfway through, but the truth is exactly the opposite. Most irregular galaxies weren't born this way. They became this way. Imagine a peaceful city hit by an earthquake. The buildings still exist. The roads are still there, but nothing is where it used to be. That's what gravity can do to an entire galaxy. When galaxies pass close to one another, their gravity stretches them like taffy. Stars are pulled into new paths. Clouds of gas are ripped apart. Sometimes a smaller galaxy plunges straight through a larger one. Sometimes a massive neighbor slowly tears pieces away over billions of years. Therefore, the neat structure disappears. Chaos takes over. Ironically, that's exactly when new life begins. As giant gas clouds collide, they become compressed. Gravity squeezes them tighter and tighter until something incredible happens. New stars ignite. Not dozens, not hundreds, millions. The very event that destroys a galaxy's original shape becomes the reason it shines brighter than ever. It's one of the universe's favorite tricks. Destruction creates creation. Some of our closest galactic neighbors belong to this family. The large and small Magellanic Clouds, visible from Earth's southern hemisphere, are both irregular galaxies. Their unusual shapes heavily influenced by the Milky Way's gravity. So the next time you hear the word irregular, don't think mistake. Think survivor. So far, every galaxy we've looked at got its shape from violence, collisions, mergers, stolen gas. But not every strange galaxy has a dramatic backstory. Some are just born small, and small turns out to be way stranger than you'd think. These are dwarf galaxies. They're the smallest galaxies in the universe. Some contain only a few million stars, others only a few thousand. To put that into perspective, Our Milky Way contains somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars. You could combine countless tiny dwarf galaxies and still struggle to match one galaxy like ours. They sound insignificant, but they're anything but. Dwarf galaxies are actually the most common galaxies in the universe. They're everywhere. Many orbit larger galaxies like loyal companions. Our own Milky Way has more than 50 known dwarf galaxies circling it, and astronomers continue discovering more hidden in the darkness. But here's where things become genuinely mysterious. Some dwarf galaxies contain almost no visible matter at all. Instead, they're dominated by something we've never directly seen: dark matter. In certain ultra-faint dwarf galaxies, over 99% of their mass may be invisible. Think about that. You're looking at an entire galaxy, where almost everything inside it cannot be seen. The stars are little more than tiny breadcrumbs, hinting that an invisible giant is hiding underneath. It's like finding a few leaves floating on a lake, then realizing an entire mountain lies beneath the water. For decades, astronomers didn't even know many of these galaxies existed. They were simply too faint to detect, which raises an unsettling question. If we've only recently discovered our closest galactic neighbors, how many more are still hiding in the dark? As strange as invisible galaxies sound, the next type looks even less believable. Imagine staring into deep space and seeing a perfect circle, not a spiral, not a disk, a glowing ring floating alone in the darkness. It almost looks artificial. These are ring galaxies, and they might be the most beautiful accidents in the universe. The most famous example is called Hoag's object, a bright yellow core, a huge empty gap, then an almost perfectly circular ring of brilliant blue stars surrounding everything. It doesn't look real, it looks designed. Naturally, astronomers wanted to know how something so perfect could possibly exist. Their best explanation begins with absolute chaos. Long ago, a smaller galaxy charged straight through the center of a much larger one, like dropping a pebble into a perfectly still pond. The impact created ripples, but these weren't water waves. They were waves of gravity. Those waves raced outward through enormous clouds of gas, compressing everything they touched. Therefore, a giant expanding ring of newborn stars appeared around the galaxy. Billions of years later, that expanding wave is still glowing across space. But here's the part astronomers still can't fully explain. Hoag's object doesn't have an obvious galaxy nearby that could have caused the collision. The suspect is missing, meaning one of the most beautiful galaxies ever discovered still refuses to reveal exactly how it was born. You'd think the universe couldn't invent anything stranger than a galaxy shaped like a perfect donut. It can, because the next galaxy doesn't just wear a ring, it wears one, standing straight up. A galaxy shaped like a perfect ring already sounds impossible. But what if that ring didn't orbit around the galaxy? What if it orbited over the galaxy, at almost a perfect 90-degree angle? It would look less like a galaxy, and more like a giant cosmic hula hoop. These are polar ring galaxies, and they're among the rarest objects in the known universe. Imagine spinning a basketball on your finger. Now imagine another hoop spinning around that basketball, from top to bottom instead of around its middle. It shouldn't work. Yet somehow, nature made it happen. Astronomers believe these galaxies form when another galaxy approaches from exactly the right direction. Instead of a normal collision, gravity steals enormous amounts of gas and stars, placing them into an entirely different orbit. Therefore, one galaxy ends up spinning in two completely different directions at the same time. Only about 0.5% of nearby lenticular galaxies are known to have true polar rings, making them incredibly rare. But scientists don't study them just because they're beautiful. These strange rings reveal something we normally can't see: dark matter. By watching how the ring moves, astronomers can map the invisible dark matter surrounding the galaxy, almost like watching leaves blow through the wind to reveal the shape of an invisible tornado. It's one of the few times the universe accidentally exposed one of its greatest secrets. But even these bizarre galaxies have something in common. They survived. The next galaxies are still in the middle of the fight. Imagine two cities, each containing hundreds of billions of stars, each larger than anything the human mind can truly imagine. Now send them toward each other, not for minutes, not for years, for hundreds of millions of years. Eventually, they collide. These are interacting galaxies. And despite the name, it's not really the stars that crash, it's gravity. Gravity stretches entire galaxies like soft clay. Long rivers of stars spill into space. Bridges of glowing gas connect galaxies that used to be completely separate. The famous antennae galaxies look exactly like giant insect antennae, their tidal tails stretching hundreds of thousands of light years into the darkness. You'd expect complete destruction, but here's the twist. Almost no stars actually hit one another. Space is simply too empty. Instead, the enormous clouds of gas collide. They compress, collapse. Therefore, millions of brand new stars suddenly ignite. The same collision that tears galaxies apart creates one of the biggest waves of star formation in the universe. Creation, born from destruction. Eventually, gravity wins. The two galaxies stop being two. They merge into one enormous system, often becoming the giant elliptical galaxies we explored earlier. At this point, you might think you've seen the universe at its most violent. You haven't. Because sometimes the most powerful thing inside a galaxy isn't the galaxy itself. It's what's hiding at the center. Nearly every large galaxy contains a supermassive black hole. Even our Milky Way has one. Most of the time, those black holes are surprisingly quiet, almost invisible. But occasionally, something wanders too close. Gas, dust, sometimes even an entire star. As that material falls inward, it doesn't disappear immediately. It begins orbiting faster and faster, heating to temperatures of millions of degrees. Suddenly, the center of the galaxy explodes with light. These are called active galaxies, and they contain some of the brightest objects in the entire universe. Quasars, Seyfert galaxies, blazars. A single quasar can outshine the Milky Way by hundreds, sometimes even thousands of times. Think about that. Hundreds of billions of stars, completely overshadowed by one feeding black hole. Some active galaxies also fire gigantic jets of particles moving at almost the speed of light. These jets can stretch for millions of light years beyond the galaxy itself. And if one of those jets happens to point directly toward Earth, we see one of the brightest objects the universe can produce, a blazar. Just when you think galaxy names can't get any stranger, astronomers discover one that sounds almost ridiculous. Green Pea Galaxies. Yes, that's their real name. They weren't discovered by a giant space telescope or by a famous scientist. They were first spotted in 2007 by ordinary volunteers helping classify galaxies online. In telescope images, they looked like tiny glowing green dots, like frozen peas scattered across the sky. Cute name. Incredible galaxies. Despite their small size, they're among the fastest star factories in the nearby universe. They're also surprisingly primitive, containing very few heavy elements. That makes them living fossils. Studying them is like looking back billions of years to the kinds of galaxies that existed shortly after the universe itself was born. And finally, we reach perhaps the strangest galaxies of all. Imagine a galaxy as large as the Milky Way. Now erase almost every star. What's left is an ultra-diffuse galaxy. Astronomers often call them ghost galaxies. They're enormous, yet so faint that many remained hidden until only recently. One famous example, Dragonfly 44, appears to contain far fewer stars than expected, while possibly hiding an enormous amount of dark matter. Another, NGC 1052-DF2, seems to contain almost no dark matter at all. The same class of galaxy, two completely opposite mysteries. At first, galaxies seem like nothing more than different shapes. Spirals, ellipses, rings, smudges. But the longer astronomers looked, the more they realized they weren't looking at shapes. They were looking at stories. Some galaxies are still being born. Some have run out of fuel. Some are rebuilding after impossible collisions. Some hide black holes so powerful they outshine entire galaxies, and others still refuse to fit into any category we've invented. The universe isn't filled with billions of identical islands of stars. It's filled with billions of different histories, each one shaped by gravity, time, and pure cosmic chance. So the next time you see a galaxy in a telescope image, don't just ask, "What kind of galaxy is that?" Ask something much more interesting. What happened to it? Because every galaxy, no matter how strange it looks, isn't just another object in space. It's the universe, telling the story of its own life.